What is up, guys? Hope you guys are doing well today or whenever you're watching this video. And today we're going to be continuing our college football team preview series. So, episode 1, we did Texas. Today we are doing the other side of the Red River rivalry. We're going to be talking about the Oklahoma Sooners and my thoughts and predictions for them this season in terms of their departing players, recruiting, incoming players, returning players, and their schedule for this year, and ultimately at the end, what my record prediction for the Sooners will be. Just a legal disclaimer here if I ever drop my voice at any point in this video. I am recording it at the ripe time of 2 a.m. in the morning, so just beware of that. So can't disrupt the neighbors or anything, but we're gonna get right into this one. So hope you guys are doing well, and we're gonna get right into it. So the Sooners, as we know, head coached by Brent Venables. It is his 5th year here. He finally made the breakthrough last year of making it to the CFP. Had a pretty mediocre year 1, a solid year 2, mediocre year 3 again. That was the first year in the SEC, but then last year they managed the SEC much better. They went 10-2 in the regular season, which obviously got them a spot in the CFP, but they did not win the game. I think I saw a statistic somewhere where they are part of like 4 or 5 teams who have made the CFP 5 times since its inception in the 2014-15 season. And obviously, those teams like Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, Clemson, I think those are the 4 actually. They've all I think they've all won at least one CFP championship, and they've all, been to the championship game. They've all won plenty of CFP games before. The Sooners have not. This was their first trip to the college football postseason under this Brent Venables regime. All of the previous appearances, obviously, coming with Lincoln Riley, who has still not made it at USC, although this could be an upcoming year for the Trojans, but we'll see how they do. Anyways, besides the point. So, Oklahoma makes it for the first time in the Brent Venables era in the CFP, but they falter in round 1 against a team who they had beaten earlier in the season. That would be Alabama. They lose at home 34-24. The offensive coordinator is going to be Ben Arbuckle, coming back for his 2nd year with the Sooners. Just to put this in perspective, he was with Western Kentucky, which is not a bad school by any means, but I mean their mascot is a big red blob, so if that tells you anything. But he was their co-offensive coordinator in 2022, so 4 seasons ago now. He was their co-offensive coordinator. Now he is the offensive coordinator for the CFP appearing Oklahoma Sooners. That doesn't really make any sense, but took a stop at Washington State, which is primarily why John Mateer is here now. He was there 2023 and 24, so he was there 2023 Cam Ward, 2024 John Mateer, and then moved over to Oklahoma, and that is a big factor in why Mateer came over to Norman, Oklahoma to be with the Sooners last year, and then obviously stay with them this year, as we'll get into in a bit here. And the defensive coordinator is Brent Venables as well, so he is the defensive play caller. He's a defensive mastermind, as the college football world has found out year in and year out. So, speaking of defensive successes, as we get into the statistics here, Oklahoma was atop or near the top of the SEC in almost every key defensive statistic. They were first in the SEC in points per game, fourth in pass yards per game, first in rush yards per game, first in total yards per game. So they were first in the SEC out of 16 teams in 3 out of the 4 major defensive statistics. By the way, they were 7th in the country in points per game let up, 3rd in the country in rush yards let up per game at 77.3 and 272.5 total yards per game defensively. That was 6th in the country. So they were top 7 in the country in all 3 of those statistics, and 32nd in pass yards per game, which is still not bad. Just not top 10, but not bad either. But essentially, like it or not, what cost them a bunch of games and ultimately the CFP game, despite their hot start there, was the offense. The offense struggled in almost every category. They were 12th in points per game, 9th in pass yards per game, 13th in the SEC in rush yards per game, although they were 113th in the country out of 136 teams. So their run game last year was miserable by SEC standards. And then total yards per game, they were just inside the top 100 in the country, 12th out of 16 in the SEC. So the offense, and I guess more specifically the rush offense, was, just to put it plainly, get it? Isn't Oklahoma like something on the, or no, that's Palace on the Prairie. Auburn is the Plains. It's 2 a.m. right now, guys. We're pushing through it. So, excuse my mistake there. But the offense was plainly not good enough. The good news and the news, I guess, good and bad, is that they return a lot of key pieces from that offense. They return John Mateer. They return their top 3 rushers from a year ago. Mateer being one of them. Torrey Blaylock, the leading rusher, and Xavier Robinson, I believe, was the 3rd leading rusher. They're both back. They return Isaiah Satania, a huge pickup, or not pickup, but a huge get to return to the program in the offseason. He had almost 1,000 yards last year. We'll get to all these guys later on in the video in more depth. But get some, huge returns from last year. Obviously, Ben Arbuckle comes back. You get some transfers coming in. You get a returning offensive line with a bunch of experience already. So it's a good thing just off the bat, or at first glance, or at first sight. But then you look at the statistics and you see that this offense was 12th in the SEC in points per game. They were 12th in total yards per game. They were 13th in rush offense. So it's a good and a bad thing, but I think it is more of a good thing ultimately. Um, you know, I think another year of experience for all these guys at the same position certainly can't hurt. So I don't think there's any way to go for this Oklahoma offense but up this year, and I think the defense will be strong again. So we ultimately could, I mean, this is basically my prediction for the team this year, but I think the team will be more skilled overall from last year to this year. Whether that means they will perform better and fare better against this schedule, that is still to be determined. And sitting here right now, I can't determine that. But looking at this schedule from a year ago, they started 5-0, and then you get the John Mateer, was it thumb or pinky? It was a finger injury, one of his fingers, that he got injured, and whether you like it or not, you have to acknowledge he really wasn't the same, and neither was the offense, which is kind of a, as John Mateer goes, the offense goes kind of situation. but they put up 6 against Texas in that Red River rivalry. They lost 23-6, came back with a win against South Carolina, but then losing to Ole Miss 34-26. So they enter a rough patch there in October, but November, my goodness, they were, for that 2 week stretch, you couldn't tell Oklahoma fans they weren't winning the whole thing there with road wins against Tennessee at night and Alabama in the afternoon. Two essentially must-win games for them, quite literally, to make the CFP, because they're not going to make it going 9-3. I mean, they were, what, the 8th seed? So if they lose one of those games, they're done. They're out of there. But they beat Tennessee, they beat Alabama, but the offensive struggles continue into those final 2 weeks. They only put up 17 points against both Mizzou and LSU. Two pretty strong defenses, actually. LSU's defense, I think, was pretty strong, which they had to be to not get absolutely slaughtered every game, but that's just the way of the Brian Kelly offense, but I digress. They put up 17 points against Mizzou and LSU. Again, two good defenses, but 17 points nonetheless. And then they enter that playoff game, an Alabama team at home that they've beaten before. They start off, I think it was 17-0, and they lose 34-24. The offense does not do enough. They get some costly turnovers, or I guess Alabama gets some costly takeaways. There's a pick six in there, and the Sooner schooner crumbles and falls, and that is the end of the 2025 chapter for this Oklahoma football story. So, we will be getting into what we have, what we don't have, who left the team in the off season, and then ultimately who is coming back, who is coming in, what the roster looks like. So before we get into that, let's look at some recruiting here. So Oklahoma finished with the number 16 class nationally according to the rankings of 24/7 Sports Composite, number 16 nationally, number 9 in the SEC, which just shows you out of the top 16 teams in recruiting, 9 of them were in the SEC. They get some top recruits, 3 out of the top 100. Their biggest prize, according to these 24/7 Sports Composite rankings, was a 4-star edge from IMG, actually, in Bradenton, Florida. Jake Cruel. He was the 73rd overall player in the class, number 9 ranked at the edge position. Jonathan Hatton Jr., he was the number 4 ranked running back in the class from Cibolo, Texas. From Salina, Texas, the number 7 ranked quarterback in the class, number 89 overall, Bo Bentley. He will be a guy to watch come through the program here in the years to come. Also, 3 of the top 10 players, 3 of the top 10 incoming recruits for the Sooners were at the wide receiver position. You have Daniel Odom from Bellflower, California. You have Jasir Rogers. Fun fact, Jasir Rogers is the number one, or I should say was, the number 1 player ranked in the state of Delaware. Not sure how hard that is to do. I don't know how much football grown talent there is in our first state of America, but, you know, honestly, number 1 player in any state has my respect and should have all of your respect, or whoever's watching this video. Anyways, but the number 1 ranked player in the state of Delaware, number 328 overall, and the number 50 ranked wide receiver. And then the number 1 wide receiver for the Sooners was Jaden Pettit. He was number 185 overall, number 28 at the wide receiver position from Naples, Florida. You got a interior offensive lineman in there, Deacon Schmidt. Tyler Ruxer comes in from Lincoln City, Indiana, the tight end. And let's see, Derek Johnson II, the cornerback from California, and Jacob Curry as well from Florida, the linebacker. So overall, a solid recruiting class here for the Sooners. Let's now look to who we've lost, who departed the program in the off season. So obviously, John Mateer comes back. You do lose your backup quarterback, which was, a nice amenity to have in the season, especially when Mateer went down with that injury for that period of time, and that was Michael Hawkins Jr. He transferred to West Virginia. He got even more playing time in 2024 when the Sooners were struggling at the QB position when Jackson Arnold was still there. He's at UNLV now, which is that's a crazy thing to say. I mean, he was like the prodigy. He was the truth when Dillon Gabriel left, and there was that glimmer of hope when he shined there in the Alamo Bowl against Arizona, although they did lose that game. In the running back position, you lose Jaden Ott, who was 2023 first team All Pac-12 with Cal in 2023, although he didn't do too much in his 1 year here at Oklahoma. I don't think he started a game, actually, which was just a shock, to be honest, because he was so good, so explosive with the Golden Bears. Javante Barnes as well. He had just under 600 yards in 2024. He transfers to Kentucky. In the receiving room, they kind of revamp the receiving room this year. As I said, other than Isaiah Satania, not a lot of key returning production in that room. So they bring in some transfers who we'll be getting into here in a little bit. Deion Burks gets drafted by the Indianapolis Colts. Keontez Lewis gets signed with Tampa Bay as a UDFA. Giovanni Gibson transfers to Cincinnati. Jaron Kanak, the tight end, gets drafted by Tennessee in the 7th round. So the receiving room gets a little bit of a revamp, if you will, which should be a sneaky good room, I think. There are a lot of solid, strong pieces who have a lot of good experience at other programs. So, obviously, as with any heavy transfer class, any heavy transfer position group, the problem is going to be gelling them all together, but that will just have to come with time. From an offensive line perspective, only one offensive lineman drafted in this past draft, which was offensive guard Febechi Nwewu, who was drafted in the 4th round by the Houston Texans. Troy Everett transfers to Ole Miss. Jacob Sexton transfers to Oklahoma State. I swear I could make a literal series out of all of these guys transferring from bitter rival to bitter rival, and it would just not end. But Jacob Sexton transfers to the Cowboys in Stillwater. Luke Beklenko transfers to Arizona State. And Logan Howland to Virginia Tech to be with James Franklin and the Hokies. From a defensive perspective, R. Mason Thomas, maybe your biggest defensive loss or departure. He gets drafted by Kansas City in the 2nd round. Big loss there. He was first team All-SEC a year ago. 2025 second team All-SEC was defensive tackle Grayson Halton, who gets picked up in the draft in round 4 by the San Francisco 49ers. Damonic Williams signed by Arizona as a UDFA. He was 2023 honorable mention All Big 12 with TCU. Kendall Daniels gets picked up in the 4th round by the Falcons. He was second team All Big 12 in 2022 with, guess who? Oklahoma State. Isn't that a wonderful thing, all these Bedlam rivalry transfers? Where's the loyalty gone, I ask, as a purist college football fan. Sammy Omosigho, he was a solid piece to the defense last year. He transfers to UCLA. Kobe McKenzie goes to Northwestern. Marvin Jones Jr. signed by Seattle as a UDFA. Robert Spears Jennings, a big loss. He was, I think, their leading tackler who departed in the offseason. He was their 3rd leading tackler on the whole team. But the good news is for Oklahoma, they return their 2 leading tacklers from last season, which we'll get to here in a bit. But Robert Spears Jennings, with 66 total tackles in 2024, he gets picked up by the Steelers in round 7. So getting into the starting lineup here for the Sooners, Phil Steele has them ranked as the 23rd most experienced group in the country, number 4 in the SEC. So all things considered, it's a very experienced group. You didn't lose a lot. In the grand scheme of things, you didn't lose a ton of production from a year ago. You didn't lose a ton of the key pieces of the team, at least when compared to Texas, compared to Indiana, compared to all these teams that we've covered, which we'll get to here in a bit. But number 4 most experienced team, again, according to Phil Steele's experience chart. So one of the more experienced teams in this loaded conference, which will be very important as the schedule draws on and as the year draws on and injuries start to pile up and so on and so forth. The starting QB is going to be John Mateer, as we know. A point of concern maybe is if Mateer goes down, don't want to wish that obviously, but if he does go down, the backup QB is a bit of a question mark, but obviously hoping that we never have to explore that option in the first place. But he had just south of 3,000 yards, 3,000 passing yards, 14 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, so the passing game was not great, or at least the touchdown to interception ratio was not great. He was also the 2nd leading rusher for the Sooners with 431 yards a year ago, and obviously, as we know, spent 3 years with Washington State up in Pullman, the last of which, I believe, or no, I guess 2 years. 2 years he spent in Pullman with Ben Arbuckle, and then when Ben moved down to Norman to take the offensive coordinator position here, Mateer could not resist that offer and moved down with him. So he returns to Norman for a 2nd year. Xavier Robinson is going to be the main running back, although there's going to be I think a decent distribution, if you will, or work by committee in this running back room. Xavier Robinson, 421 yards on the ground last year, as well as just north of 100 yards through the air receiving last year. Torrey Blaylock returns. He was actually their leading rusher from a year ago. And Lloyd Avant comes in from Colorado State as well. Trell Harris, as we begin the receiving room here. Trell Harris, actually a Nazareth Academy product here in LaGrange, so not too far from here. He was third team All ACC. He had a breakout year last year statistically with the Cavaliers. He was by far their most productive receiver and the most frequent target for quarterback Chandler Morris. Now he's going to be catching passes from Mateer. He had 847 yards, 5 receiving touchdowns a year ago in Charlottesville. Another transfer and another bitter rivalry transfer. Parker Livingston transfers from Texas to Oklahoma. How do you do that? I don't know. But he had 516 yards, 6 receiving touchdowns last year for the Horns. He was kind of a breakout player in that receiving room, and he's going to look for a more featured role this year. With the Sooners, but the main catch and the main attraction in this receiving room will once again be Isaiah Sategna. 965 yards, 8 receiving touchdowns last year. Last year was his first year with the Sooners. Before that, he had 3 years in Fayetteville with the Arkansas Razorbacks. He was a first-team All-SEC player a year ago. The tight end position will be filled by Hayden Hansen, who is a Florida transfer. Also, Rocky Beers coming over from Colorado State. That's a name and a half for sure. The offensive line returns some production, or a good amount of production from a year ago. Michael Fasusi played in 11 games last year as a true freshman. Eddie Pierre-Louis played in 13 games last year. Jake Mikula, the center, 12 games played at Stanford in 24 and 11 games played here last year with Oklahoma. Let's see, you have Ryan Fodgy. Fun fact about him, he started playing football in high school. He said he hardly knew what the game was or how it worked in his freshman year in high school, but he has come alive and come along nicely here in this offensive line room. He played in 13 games last year, all 13 games as a true freshman. The one starter here on this offensive line who was not here last year going to be Imarion Harris. He played 13 games in 2024 and 11 games last year at Arkansas as well. From a defensive perspective, only one starter, which is unbelievable. Only one projected starter who was not here last year. Not to say that you return the other 10 starters, but all 10 other guys were here in some capacity last year. So the defensive line is totally returning from a year ago. Taylor Wine, Jaden Jackson, David Stone, Adepoju Adebawore. It's a hard name to pronounce at 2 a.m., but hopefully I did it justice there. They all come back from a year ago. Again, not to say that they were all starters, but they were all here in some capacity. Your 2 linebackers, who were your 2 leading tacklers, that's going to be an electric linebacker room to watch. Owen Heineke and Kip Lewis both coming back from last year for this defense, as well as what we call the cheetah position. The cheetah position is what I learned. I didn't know this about a few hours ago, but I had to look this up. It is a linebacker safety hybrid position, if you will. So kind of a mix in functions between the two that Brent Venables likes to use in his defenses. He used them when he was under Dabo Swinney at Clemson, and now coming over here as the head coach with Oklahoma. That's projected to be Cole Sullivan, who is the only transfer on this starting defense from last year to this year. He had 44 total tackles, 5 TFLs, 2 sacks, and 3 interceptions at Michigan last year. And then the secondary, Cortland Guillory returns as a cornerback. Get this, Oklahoma in the secondary has a twin pair, Eli and Peyton. Not to be confused with the Mannings, they're the Bowens. Eli Bowen, the right cornerback, and Peyton Bowen, the strong safety. They both were key parts of the Sooner defense a year ago. They both return, and then Michael Boganowski will be the starting free safety for the Sooners. Special teams, let's just say the Sooners were not suffering last year. They had first team All SEC for both kicker and punter. Their punter, Grayson Miller, averaged 45.8 yards per punt a year ago. He was first team All SEC. And then Tate Sandell, my goodness, what a year. 35 of 35 from extra points, 24 of 27 from field goals. He was a 3-year player from UTSA, came over to the Sooners last offseason and racked up about every kicker award that you could find. 2 of them, just to name a few, 2 of the honors he won were the Lou Groza Award winner, which is, as we know, the best kicker in the country, and first team All-American both a year ago for Sandell. So they will not be suffering at special teams this year, we can say that. Moving into the schedule. So what do I think about the Sooners? How do I think they will fare against this SEC schedule? Just so we are aware, Phil Steele projects that this will be the number 5 toughest schedule in the country, number 3 in the SEC, only behind Texas, who we covered, who was number 1, and Arkansas, who has the number 4 toughest schedule in the country. But number 3, the 3rd toughest schedule in the SEC, goes to the Sooners, is awarded to the Sooners as a gift. So they start with UTEP, Michigan on the road, New Mexico at home. Shout out New Mexico, by the way. I'll get into them, but I think Jason Eck is a killer head coach. Georgia on the road, just before your bye week. After the bye week, you go to Texas, or not to Texas, it's the Cotton Bowl. My goodness. It is the Cotton Bowl for the Red River rivalry. You will face Texas, a nice Parker Livingston reunion there on October 10th. Home against Kentucky on the 17th. On the road against Mississippi State the 24th. The 31st, you're back home against South Carolina. On the road against Florida, that's a Hayden Hansen reunion that day on the 7th to start November. Ole Miss at home, Texas A&M at home, Missouri on the road to finish November and to finish the schedule. My goodness, that was a struggle. All right, so getting into the schedule here, starting off home against UTEP. I don't know too much about UTEP, unfortunately, but I think they had a pretty struggle-filled year a year ago. I'm going to take the Sooners pretty comfortably in this one. Michigan on the road. Okay. This is going to be, I think this could be a defensive bloodbath, honestly. This could be, it's Again, it's probably at 11 a.m. for no reason at all, for big noon kickoff and whatnot. It's going to be at the big house. Place is going to be jumping. Both offenses are still going to be trying to gel, trying to recover maybe in some ways from struggling years last year. Neither offense was very good at all a year ago. I'm going to give this one to the Sooners. I think Oklahoma completes the home and home sweep or home and away sweep 2 years in a row. I think they won at home. I don't think so. I know so. They won at home in 2025, and I think they get it done at the big house. I think they start 2-0 heading into that New Mexico game. New Mexico, top contender in the group of five, and I think Jason Eck, he's a winner. He's going to be a guy that you're going to want to keep an eye out for, and he's going to be a guy, I think, who could have power four positions opening up for him in a few years here. I do think that is a win for Oklahoma, by the way. That was a long, suspenseful pause there, but I do think that is a win for the Sooners. You're 3-0. You're heading to Athens, Georgia to face the Dogs. I do think this is where you take your first loss on the 26th. 3-1 out of September, which, I mean, let's be honest. You get Michigan and Georgia on the road, two of the most hostile environments in the sport, plain and simple. So I think 3-1 is not a bad result for you here as you move into October, which begins with a bye and then Texas in the Cotton Bowl. I think Texas gets it done here for a third year in a row. You catch a tough break, 2 games in a row, and you fall to 3-2. Now, here is where I think things turn around. Last year, it was this spot. It was late October where the Sooners stumbled a little bit and then they picked things up in November. I think it could be almost the opposite. I don't know if they'll stumble as much in November, but I think it could be almost the opposite here. You have, in my opinion, 4 pretty winnable games all in a row. You have Kentucky, you have Mississippi State on the road, South Carolina, and Florida on the road. I'm going to go ahead and say you win all 4. You get through all of those. The one that I would circle on there if I had to put one down would be going to the Swamp. It's a tough place to play whenever, let alone in November. They have not met as SEC foes, and a little bit of bad blood in there as well, as Hayden Hansen, the starting tight end for the Gators, the past few years has now, as we discussed, jumped ship and is headed to Oklahoma for this upcoming season. So that's going to be a tough one almost no matter how Florida is this year. It's always a tough game in the Swamp. It's a tough out, but I think that the Sooners get it done. They showed last year they can win on the road. They can win on the road. 2 of their 3 losses were in Norman, and the other one was at a neutral site. So actually, they didn't even have a true road game where they lost, which is pretty impressive. So they can win on the road. I think they get it done there. That puts them at 7-2 heading into this critical final 3-game stretch. Ole Miss at home, Texas A&M, and then Mizzou on the road. I am going to say, I think you split the home games. I think Ole Miss gets you at home, but then you come back, respond against Texas A&M with a win, go on the road, finish out the season with a win over Mizzou, and with that, your final record is 9-3, which puts you, I believe, if I'm doing the math right here, at 6-3 in the SEC. So that is my prediction for this Oklahoma Sooners schedule. Once again, that's 9-3 overall, 6-3 in the SEC. Is that enough to get them into the CFP? Honestly, I don't know. I would lean no. But if this prediction comes true, you've got a win over Michigan on the road. You've got a win over, South Carolina could be a decent team. That's at home. Florida on the road. Texas A&M at home. You go to Mizzou, get a win there on the road to finish out the season. So I don't know if that's enough to get into the CFP. If it is not, I I don't know, but if it is not, Brent Venables, I don't think he gets fired for a 9-3 season, but I think his seat heatens up a little bit. It gets a little smoky under there in Norman. So that is my prediction for the Oklahoma Sooners. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if on the off chance I do not make another one of these videos over the summer, I just want to say thank you guys for tuning in to this one. Thank you guys for tuning in to all of them. And I hope you guys enjoyed this series, this mini series here. And I hope to see you guys again sometime in the not so distant future. So, hope you guys are doing well and take care.